Today, the fiery preacher who captured worldwide attention when he delivered a warning about the fall of America. New York Times best-selling author Jonathan Cahn is here with a prophetic update, now on Jewish Voice.
Hello and welcome to Jewish Voice, where we proclaim Jesus as Messiah to the world and help you to understand the Jewish roots of your Christian faith and world events surrounding Israel. Well, 3 years ago, he soared to worldwide attention with his best-selling book, The Harbinger. Is America being judged? Where are we on God's prophetic timetable? And what has happened since the release of The Harbinger? Rabbi Jonathan Cahn is back to give us an update, and he's here to spend the whole week with us to help us better understand the times we live in. Please welcome my good friend, Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. You are one busy guy.
Yeah, too busy. My son, my 5-year-old son said, John, he says, Daddy, we wanted to make the home look like a hotel so you could feel at home. So I said, I've been away a lot, I think.
That sounds like my family. By the way, we've known each other
for like 30 years.
Over 30 years.
Yeah.
We were born within a month of each other. We have the same name. We both have Brazilian wives. The parallels are uncanny.
Yes, and there's a whole bunch. You could do a book on it. It's very strange. We don't understand what it is. We don't know if we're the two witnesses or what, but there's something's going on. I don't know.
We have a similar hairdo now.
That's every analogy breaks down.
Well, it's really good to have you back.
Great
Welcome.
to be here, Jonathan. Always a blessing to be here.
Well,
Wonderful ministry.
You are a font of knowledge, and so much has happened since the writing of The Harbinger. For the very few, Jonathan, who aren't familiar with The Harbinger and then your later book on the Shemitah, help us understand what The Harbinger is, what the Shemitah is, and then let's talk about what did or did not happen.
Yeah, The Harbinger is an ancient mystery from the Bible. It's a template in the Bible that God is consistent, that in the last days of ancient Israel, 9 signs appear before judgment comes, a nation in danger of judgment. And the eerie thing or the stunning thing or the scary thing is the same harbingers have appeared in America, on American soil. Some in New York, where we are, some in Washington, D.C., some involving the president, but they unfold uncannily. I mean, and exactly. And the people who are part of it don't know what they're doing, but it happens anyway.
And so, it was a wake-up call. How many books? 3 million?
Over 2 million.
Over
I don't know what
million.
it is now, but over 2 million. Since we last came here, I was
Amazing
here just before it was released. You had me here.
I remember very well.
And you kind of prophesied about it. But what happened? So that and the Shemitah is one of the mysteries of it, and that is that it's a 7-year cycle, which can be linked to judgment at times, and is linked to the rise and fall of nations, the rise and fall of economies, and it's one of the cycles that can be of that. And that was the mystery of the Shemitah.
Okay, so that's and most people are familiar with both,
Yes.
read both books as I did. Now, we were looking very, very closely between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Yes.
And I was traveling. My wife was very upset about it. Many thought the world was going to come to an end. When it didn't happen, the naysayers were saying, look, it didn't happen. But in fact, things did happen.
A lot did happen. Yeah, first of all, I give 2 cautions. I know that this week we're going to talk about the prophetic jubilee, which we are in, and I always give a caution. I gave it when I was here. I've always done it, and that is that one is God is sovereign. He doesn't have to do anything according to our timetable. Number one, and we cannot put him in a box. He is on the throne, and we can't pin that down. There are people who are looking at that and saying something has to happen. It has to happen on this day. However, much did happen, and one of the things is.
But I want to stop you for just 1 second and saying that many people misinterpreted.
That's right.
What I had you on the show at least twice talking about this, and I never heard you say. This will happen.
Ever. No.
Ever.
In fact,
never,
in fact, I said the opposite. I mean, to be aware of it, it could, but God doesn't have to do anything. I said it at every point. And then for a reason, because I don't want people focusing on dates, ever. But the progression has continued. So a number of things. First of all, the book, the major template of the Shemitah is not a crash on a day. That happened the last 2 times, but it's a long-term crash that happens over a period of months. And that within the Shemitah, the pattern is, this is almost the last 7 Shemitahs, that the stock market reaches its peak, then begins to descend over months. Okay, did that happen? That's exactly what happened this Shemitah. Number one, the market reached its peak in the spring, began to descend so much so people didn't because there was so much focus on a day. The same pattern happened, so much so it wiped out $2 trillion of the American markets. It wiped out around the world. Brazil was 12,000 points. India was 4,000. The $11 trillion were wiped out by this Shemitah in this period. The same pattern. And
now China also had
that's another
terrible
key.
collapse.
Yeah, we look at America. We're very American-centric. China is now the engine of the world economy right now. So did the Shemitah strike China? Absolutely. China was wiped out by 43% of their entire financial realm was wiped out. Almost half was wiped out. I mean,
and did it happen not only the months between Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah?
It happened
or Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but on a specific day.
Yeah, well, not only did it happen in the year of the Shemitah, the key of the Shemitah, which is in the book as well, is the end period or the summer period. Summer to Elul is the key month. When Elul came, 10 days later, you had Black Monday, you had Black Tuesday, you had it produced two of the greatest day crashes in world history, the greatest intraday crash in world history. All of that happened not only in the Shemitah, but in that last month leading up to the end, which is the peak time of it. So the fact is that's one part of it. So you had a massive thing, and if it was the collapse of China alone, by 40-some% would constitute one of the greatest Shemitahs ever. But beyond that, another thing that happened, and there's several things that happened, and we'll get into. One of them is that in the book, it's the rise and fall of nations. Shemitah often marks these changing points, these shifts. Did anything happen? 140 years ago, the American age began in 1871, when we surpassed Britain, became the strongest economic power on earth. That opened the door for everything else that we've seen. The American age, as the strongest economic power on earth, came to an end with the Shemitah. This Shemitah literally ended it, and it was missed by so many people. America lost its crown in the Shemitah, and it was passed to China in this year.
Define that moment and how that was determined.
It happened actually at the opening. The Shemitah opened, I think, within 2 weeks of the Shemitah opening. It came out as they studied the GNP, the growth, the product. You know how much an economy it produces, which is the same exact standard from Britain in 1871. Same thing when we became the #1 nation. That was surpassed in I think the second week of the Shemitah.
Really?
The American age, as we know it, has come to an end. It began that way. So that alone, and there's more, but these alone would make it extremely significant for the future to have. Now at the same time, the Harbingers have continued, and we are continuing on a progression to judgment as well. I
want to hold the thought to the next segment, but just one more thing with the economy, and then we'll move on after the break. It wasn't felt as strongly in America, perhaps, as people expected it.
Yeah.
Why do you believe that's so?
Yeah, well, one reason is we are very American-centric, and there's a reason for that. We have been the head of nations. In the same Shemitah where it switched to China, now China is literally driving the world economy. It generally strikes the center of the world economy. It is now China, not America. I don't believe it's over for him. I don't believe the fact that we are right now. We weren't looking for the end of the world, but I believe we are still progressing very, very, very rapidly towards judgment with God. I mean, we have one of the things that happened in the Shemitah we'll get to later on, but another thing happened in the Shemitah that had to do with America and God, which was massive since we were last together. I mean, massive.
Well, we have to take a break. There's so much more, and it's not just about America. We're Israel-centric, but it's also about what God has planned for the entire world. And you need to know, we need to be as the men and women of Issachar who were wise because they understood the times. You need to understand the times, so don't go away. And also had a fascinating tribe of Jews in Ethiopia who claimed to be descendants of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. They may be one of the oldest surviving Jewish communities in the world. You'll hear about them. That's all just ahead on Jewish Voice.
Here at Jewish Voice, we're dedicated to proclaiming Messiah to the world, to the Jew first, and also to the nations. One key way we do this is by providing life-saving humanitarian aid to some of the poorest people in the world. In helping them, we share God's love and the good news of Yeshua Jesus. Today, we're urgently preparing for our next medical clinic to bless a remote Lost Tribes community in Mbrengwa, Zimbabwe. The Lemba, this faithful yet forgotten people, have ties to the ancient people of Israel, the priestly tribe of Aaron, and have been practicing ancient Jewish customs for hundreds of years. We need your help to make this vital, life-saving outreach possible. Will you be a blessing to these wonderful people and thousands of others in desperate need? The elderly, children, infants, and toddlers could die for lack of basic medical care. You can help save lives, but we must act now. Call or click now to help save lives. And with your gift of any amount, we'll say thank you by sending a newly released documentary by Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, The Harbinger Man. In 2012, Rabbi Cahn exploded onto the New York Times bestseller list with his blockbuster, The Harbinger. Americans were longing for God's word, scared for their future, and open to a messenger with God's prophetic warning. And what do we know about his journey to speak forth a warning to save his country? This DVD answers those questions. Plus, whether we're in the midst of a revival or a final warning. You'll also receive another DVD, Where Are We on God's Prophetic Timeline? Rabbi Jonathan Bernis, along with a panel of the world's foremost prophecy experts, tackle many of the hottest questions about end times events. It's an incredible resource to help you more clearly understand the times in which we live. If God's blessed you with the means to share a gift of $100 or more today, to help bless some of the neediest people on earth, we'll send you all of the gifts just mentioned and this beautiful plaque which reads, I will bless those who bless you. It'll make a lovely addition to your home or office and is a wonderful reminder to pray for Israel. Along with it, we'll also send you the Provider edition of Confessing the Hebrew Scriptures by Rabbi Jonathan Bernis. With this hardcover guidebook and companion audio CD, you'll come to understand the life-changing power of confessing in Hebrew. It'll lead you step by step into proclaiming in Hebrew God's promises for provision. And as a special add-on, we'll also send you a DVD by Jonathan Bernis, A Rabbi Looks at Israel, featuring inspirational teachings at actual biblical sites in Israel, and this 2016 Jewish Voice Calendar. Please remember, God has promised to bless those who bless the Jewish people. To share a gift in support of this humanitarian aid and to help countless others around the globe, please call or click now. Once again, time is of the essence for many of these people. Please call or click right now.
I'm back with New York Times best-selling author Jonathan Cahn. Jonathan, we know what did not happen on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. The world economy didn't crash. The world didn't come to an end, but there was an significant economic downturn, you told us, particularly in places like China and India and elsewhere outside the United States.
Around the world.
The world. But the other thing that happened is America was dethroned as the economic power of the world.
That's
during the Shemitah period.
140-year era that we've grown up with came to an end.
And that's huge.
It's gigantic.
That's huge.
Remember, the Shemitah in Hebrew also means the fall. It means the fall.
Right.
And it has always marked.
We didn't hear that anywhere, did we?
Absolutely.
We didn't hear it did anybody hear it in the secular news? No, nobody in the secular news.
And it's gigantic. And this is not going away. Gigantic. And it's also linked to end-time prophecy. So this is major. And we've spoken about that this would happen, and it did. So
part of the decline of America, the judgment of God in America.
Major.
Now, there's other things, very significant things. Go ahead and talk.
One is called the act of desecration. And in the Bible, remember when the king of Babylon was having the party, and he calls for the vessels of the temple to be brought in, and he takes them, they party with it to the gods. At that moment, the hand appears on the wall, handwriting on the wall, judgment. And the principle is, it's an act of desecration, taking the sacred vessels of God and turning them against their purpose. Desecration, it brings judgment. Okay, so now here's something very important. Just as holy as those vessels were, is the vessel of marriage. The vessel of marriage. And this year, in this Shemitah also means fall, the fall, even a spiritual fall. We crossed the line with that. America crossed the line, struck down the definition of marriage in that same summer, and that is an act of desecration, number one.
And may I add, a huge act.
Gigantic.
It was a shocking act against a biblically rooted nation.
And against creation itself. And so that's the first desecration. Second, the rainbow does not belong to man, it belongs to God. It's a sacred vessel of God. The rainbow is holy. It represents, it's a covenant. Has to do, and so what happened is that when that happened all across America, the other vessel that was sacred was also desecrated to celebrate the first desecration. And then
visible on the White House.
well, that's the third one is that, in Babylon it was the palace of the king. Well, here's the highest house of the land. The palace of the king is the White House. On the walls of the White House, it is lit up with a sign of the desecration. So now the White House literally becomes a vessel of desecration. That's a triple desecration here. And remember what the rainbow represents. The rainbow represents the covenant of God and also mercy in the face of judgment. And so when you do, these are ominous signs. It's like a triple desecration.
I keep hearing in my head, and I know it's from the Holy Spirit, let those who have eyes to hear, let them hear, or see, and let those that have ears to hear, let them hear. I'm hearing this over and over again as you're talking.
Yes.
These are signs that have been totally missed.
Yes.
By most believers as well.
Yes,
but it was very distinct and very, very serious.
It couldn't have been more blatant. I mean, how much more can we do in the face of God? I mean, how much more can we do than take this? And then, and the other thing, Jonathan, there's a date on the Hebrew calendar when judgment began, that when the Babylonians came in against Judah, they destroyed the first wall. It was the hedge wall. It's the protective wall. And that's literally a day of mourning to this day. It's the 9th of Tammuz. When the hedge is removed, that judgment comes. The 9th of Tammuz was the day the Supreme Court struck down marriage in America.
Wow, there's so much going on. I'm going to change the subject on you. We're going to talk more about this tomorrow. But our mutual friend, Joe Farah, just came out with a movie about your life.
Yes.
And we're going to offer it this week. So I want to show you a clip. It's called The Harbinger Man. It's about Jonathan's life, and it's fascinating. I want you to take a look at this clip.
I remember being like 5 years old, and a Jewish boy, a little bit older, said a strange thing. He said, God has not spoken to our people in 2,000 years. He says, and you know why? I said, no. He said, because we haven't been righteous enough, is what he said. I just remember kind of a weird thing as a little kid. But I remember this disconnect between the God of the Bible and God who spoke and moved and did miracles. But there was never any, hey, God is real in my life. The rabbi never got up and said, hey, God spoke to me, praise God, and, or God did this in my life. It just didn't happen. So it was a real disconnect. And so when I was 8 years old, considering this disconnect, I became an atheist.
This really helps us to understand the man behind the message. So we want to make it available. Just give us a quick statement about this.
Yeah, they did a great job. It has everything. It has, the story behind the Harbinger, behind how I came to the Lord. Most of all, and it's got tons of extra stuff, but also that people will find how to fulfill their calling. That's what I'm hoping in it. They find their calling with it because it shows how to walk into the destiny that God has for you.
This is so important because you're not just proclaiming a message of impending judgment, but it's time for believers to wake up and fulfill their destiny.
Exactly it.
On this earth.
That's exactly.
We have limited time.
That's exactly it. Now's the time. I truly believe it's late, and we need to live all out for God now, and that's really what this is about. So they'll see a lot of things you won't see anywhere else. I mean, tons of stuff, including the speech before the inaugural prayer breakfast and home movies and all stuff.
And we'll take a look at that speech a little later on in the week. The founder of this ministry, Lewis Kaplan, used to say that we have to do the works of Him who sent us while it is yet day, for night will come when no man can work. And that's exactly the hour we live in. God has a destiny for your life. We'll be back during the week with Jonathan to talk more about what did happen over the Shemitah and the harbingers that are actually being fulfilled before our very eyes, and let those that have eyes see and ears hear. Jonathan's latest DVD, The Harbinger Man, the Jonathan Cahn story, is a compelling story, and we want to get it out to you, so I encourage you to get it. It will really help you find your destiny, and now's the time. There's not a lot of time left. Coming up next, people in one of the world's poorest places coming to know Yeshua. Jesus is their Messiah and Savior. It's an inspirational, life-changing story still ahead.
Here at Jewish Voice, we're dedicated to proclaiming Messiah to the world, to the Jew first, and also to the nations. One key way we do this is by providing life-saving humanitarian aid to some of the poorest people in the world. In helping them, we share God's love and the good news of Yeshua Jesus. Today, we're urgently preparing for our next medical clinic to bless a remote Lost Tribes community in Mbrengwa, Zimbabwe. The Lemba, this faithful yet forgotten people, have ties to the ancient people of Israel, the priestly tribe of Aaron, and have been practicing ancient Jewish customs for hundreds of years. We need your help to make this vital, life-saving outreach possible. Will you be a blessing to these wonderful people and thousands of others in desperate need? The elderly, children, infants, and toddlers could die for lack of basic medical care. You can help save lives, but we must act now. Call or click now to help save lives. And with your gift of any amount, we'll say thank you by sending a newly released documentary by Rabbi Jonathan Cahn, The Harbinger Man. In 2012, Rabbi Cahn exploded onto the New York Times bestseller list with his blockbuster, The Harbinger. Americans were longing for God's word, scared for their future, and open to a messenger with God's prophetic warning. And what do we know about his journey to speak forth a warning to save his country? This DVD answers those questions. Plus, whether we're in the midst of a revival or a final warning. You'll also receive another DVD, Where Are We on God's Prophetic Timeline? Rabbi Jonathan Bernis, along with a panel of the world's foremost prophecy experts, tackle many of the hottest questions about end times events. It's an incredible resource to help you more clearly understand the times in which we live. If God's blessed you with the means to share a gift of $100 or more today, to help bless some of the neediest people on earth, we'll send you all of the gifts just mentioned and this beautiful plaque which reads, I will bless those who bless you. It'll make a lovely addition to your home or office and is a wonderful reminder to pray for Israel. Along with it, we'll also send you the Provider edition of Confessing the Hebrew Scriptures by Rabbi Jonathan Bernis. With this hardcover guidebook and companion audio CD, you'll come to understand the life-changing power of confessing in Hebrew. It'll lead you step by step into proclaiming in Hebrew God's promises for provision. And as a special add-on, we'll also send you a DVD by Jonathan Bernis, A Rabbi Looks at Israel, featuring inspirational teachings at actual biblical sites in Israel, and this 2016 Jewish Voice Calendar. Please remember, God has promised to bless those who bless the Jewish people. To share a gift in support of this humanitarian aid and to help countless others around the globe, please call or click now. Once again, time is of the essence for many of these people. Please call or click right now.
A very important part of what we do here at Jewish Voice is to provide medical care and clean water to Jewish communities as well as their neighbors in some of the poorest places on earth. We recently traveled to Gondar, Ethiopia, to help a Jewish community known as the Beta Israel, the House of Israel. And with help from many of you, we were able to provide free medical care, dental care, eye care, and most importantly, the gospel to an impoverished community and their neighbors. People walked for miles when they heard about the clinic, and many came to know Jesus as their Messiah and Savior. Take a look. Throughout history, they've been a persecuted people, enslaved, massacred, reviled, and driven from their lands. Indeed, the Jewish people have been scattered to the remotest parts of the earth. Even in a nation like Ethiopia, Jewish people have a history that may date over 3,000 years back to the time of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The Beta Israel, or the House of Israel, is a Jewish community that has survived in Ethiopia for centuries, despite isolation, hardship, and persecution.
Okay, I want to make sure they're separated between children. All the small children are here for pediatrics.
Only all the small.
All the small ones are pediatrics.
Volunteer pediatricians from many nations travel to treat children just like these in Gondar. From providing the most basic pediatric care to treating children who are chronically ill and dying. Many are also lined up today, some for the first time ever, to receive free dental care. Volunteer dentists work tirelessly to help as many patients as they can on each trip. But the opportunity to provide such necessary and sometimes life-saving care is second only to the opportunity Jewish Voice has to transform lives spiritually by proclaiming the good news of salvation in Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah.
A Muslim lady, just by the love that I showed her, wanted to know the God that I served, purely by my love, that she was suffering so tremendously. And I held her in my arms, and I even cried with her. It was just the right time. I said, God, thank you, because you let me know that what I'm doing is exactly what you want me to do. And just like Jonathan Burness says, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
We're going to help you today. Yes, we are. If I could take them home with me, if I could take them all home with me, I would do it. But I can't. I can't, and I want to do as much as I can. That's what the volunteers that are with me feel. We want to do as much as we possibly can. And it's like digging in sand, because more come. You treat thousands and more come because the need is so great.
Believing we are living in the days God promised to restore the Jewish people physically and spiritually, Jonathan Burness is passionate to see the fulfillment of Israel's destiny, to return to their land and to their God.
Outreaches like the one you just saw, as a matter of fact, are impacting so many lives. And it's not just those who receive the aid, but also those who come with us to help. Now, there's a cost involved, but believe me, it'll be worth every dollar. You will be changed forever. We'd love to share how you can be part of an upcoming outreach, so contact us at the toll-free number on your screen or go to jewishvoice.tv.
Make a memory of a lifetime by recommitting your love and renewing your vows on the Jewish Voice 2016 Passover on the Seas Caribbean Cruise. Join Rabbi Jonathan Burness and his family April 16th through April 23rd and enjoy the beautiful white sand beaches and tranquil turquoise waters of St. Martin, St. Thomas, and Nassau, Bahamas on one of the world's newest and largest luxury cruise liners. It's the perfect place to not only celebrate the miracle of Passover, but to rededicate your marriage to each other and to God. The rededication of marriage vows will be officiated by Rabbi Jonathan Burness under a traditional Jewish chuppah, the marriage canopy. You will also receive a beautiful certificate validating your continued commitment to each other, and the event will continue with a festive reception and formal dinner. Don't miss out on the perfect opportunity to share something meaningful with your loved one. Call 1-888-435-3787 or go to jewishvoice.org/Passover and renew your vows on the 2016 Passover on the Seas Caribbean Cruise.
I want to thank you so much for watching today, and thank you to Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. He's going to be here all week, so be sure to join us again tomorrow. As I close out the program today, I want to remind you, as I always do, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Psalm 122:6 says, "May they who love you prosper." So if you want to prosper, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And they need our prayers now more than ever. Until next time, I'm Jonathan Burness saying shalom and God bless you.